and good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to our City Council meeting for September 19th. Let's go ahead and call order, or do roll call. I called the order.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Here.
Councilmember Schmischer?
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith? Absent. Councilmember Stein? Absent. Councilmember Tracy?
Here.
Councilmember Worthington? Absent. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Here.
Mayor Smith?
Here. Let's all please rise for our invocation, which, by the way, thank you, Alicia Swearingen, for being here for this, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yep. Well, Heavenly Father, we are just so grateful for our community and the rich heritage that you have given us here in Canyon City. Lord, we pray for continued favor and provision. We pray for safety for our families and our all those that do public service in this community. And Lord, we just invite you and we ask you to lead and guide us as we continue forward and journey forward together. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a citizen's request to speak to council today on an item that's not on our agenda. I'd like to invite Timothy R. Martin to the stand, please.
Hi. How are you guys?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Good. So if I can read this, I'll try to keep it right at 3 minutes or. Okay. I'm here once again to discuss my 8-foot open wire T-post fence. Here's a quick recap. Deer have destroyed multiple gardens and fruit trees we have planted, costing us a significant amount of money. We tried having 6-foot fences around the garden, and some of the deer would still jump the fence and destroy the garden. Last year, we had some aggressive deer that would charge the dogs and my kid. This was the breaking point for us. We did some research which confirmed our personal experiences in the matter. Multiple articles and studies stated that although a 6-foot fence might deter some deer, if you had desirable food sources in your yard, such as fruit trees and gardens, the deer would still jump a 6-foot fence. An 8-foot fence was said to be the best option for stopping the deer in this instance. We talked to our neighbors about replacing the fence, and they were more than happy to see it happen. So to protect our family and our property, including future gardens and fruit trees, we scraped together the money and purchased and installed the fence. Our fence poses absolutely no threat to public safety. It is not an eyesore and is a huge improvement over the old fence. Aesthetically, it looks no different from a 6-foot open wire fence. It's just 2 foot taller, and that 2 foot serves the purpose of keeping the deer out of our yard. So to date, I have observed at least 5 city employees spending a significant amount of time on an issue that has no safety or aesthetic concerns just because it is against the rules. Last week, 3 city employees came to my house 3 times over the course of the day just to inform me that the city council had ordered them to enforce this fence violation. This is taxpayer money being wasted on something that is fairly insignificant and petty in the scope of actual issues in our community. Since I have been threatened with liens on my house and being taken to court, it would appear that the city is more than willing to possibly throw thousands of more dollars at the offending 2-foot offense. When I say no, I am not thumbing my nose at the city. I am just telling you that I will not be pursuing a course of action that puts my family and property back into danger because of a rule. Their safety and security is my first priority. If a loved one was in critical condition and you had to get them to the hospital, would you think twice about breaking the speed limit on an open road free of traffic? Of course you would not. Although that rule is well-intentioned, it doesn't mean that certain situations will call for you to ignore it. This is a similar situation. Our 8-foot fence has no actual negative impact on the public at large while providing much-needed safety and security for our family and our property. If, as it appears to be the case, City Council cannot bring themselves to alter the fence height requirements, then please give me a variance so we can move forward and stop wasting our time and taxpayer dollars.
I've missed a couple meetings in the past. I thought we were tabling any decisions until we had an opportunity to bring that omnibus UDC and discuss fence heights.
Well, we talked about the Department of Wildlife meeting and the fence heights, and those, the Department of Wildlife agreed that 6-foot fences, if they're opaque, that the deer would not jump those fences, because most wildlife is not going to jump to something that they cannot see.
Yeah, but that wasn't presented to the city council as a whole for us to make that decision to move forward on.
And I understand, that a fence that they can't see over, but a lot of people, and I'm one, when I first moved to Canyon City, I could see all the way down our back area that nobody had any fences other than some barbed wire fences and some, wire fencing. And I don't know if everybody wants to put in a solid, 6-foot wooden fence, and not only that, but the cost of that goes a lot higher. It's just something to consider.
Councilmember Schmischer?
Oh, my point was along the same line as yours, Mayor Smith. My understanding was that we had a moratorium on enforcement of this at the moment, and that hasn't come back before City Council to lift. So I'm a little confused as to why people would be going to Mr. Martin's home to try to enforce this at this juncture.
Well, that may have been my misunderstanding then. After we gave the Department of Wildlife report or update, I thought that we were moving forward with putting the rules back to where they were.
Councilmember Tracy?
I wish I had my notes with me. I rely on notes too much, but from our last discussion here about fence height, I thought we were going to have more discussion about what the alternatives might be. So I would like, whether that's in general government, future meeting, or wherever it needs to be, I'd like to have some more discussion about whether there's a way. I thought we were thinking along the lines of anything above 6, that maybe we could go to 8 as long as it wasn't solid, but I don't have my notes here, so I could be remembering wrong.
I mean, I know that we certainly had a conversation in general government meeting about some of the different options and what that might look like, and huge thanks to our planning director, Mr. Mulready, but I don't believe it's come back before council for a decision. So from my perspective, I would appreciate it if we could continue on with council's last decision until it comes forward for further discussion and a decision.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That was going to be with the UDC or the omnibus bill. Is that still something that's coming to council?
We'll have an omnibus package coming to council, but I guess we need more direction then on what you want to see in the omnibus as far as the fence heights, because we from a staff perspective, we don't have a recommendation to go to 8-foot fences. So we, at the general government meeting, we had presented, what we had found in regards to 6-foot fences, and whether or not 8-foot fences are adequate within other communities. And I guess we can put together another general government meeting on the topic.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Thank you. I was part of that meeting with the Division of Wildlife, and we did talk about fence heights, and there's definitely the thought by the Division of Wildlife officers who were present at the meeting was that 6 feet is plenty, especially if it is a solid fence. I've done some more reading on this. I'm not going to say anything. I've never seen a deer jump over a 6-foot fence, but if you get online and you look up heights, and I know mule deer and whitetail definitely have different, but if you even look up look up the height that a mule deer can jump in that, and 6 feet, every one of them says they can go over a 6-foot fence, no problem. And so that's a tough call, because our Division of Wildlife guys, I have full faith in what they say. I'm not doubting them at all, but I do believe deer can jump higher. Would they jump higher? I think it depends if they're being chased. There's so many circumstances there, but I think it is something that we just
table for a minute, and I think all of us as council members, all of us need to do our own little research on this as well, and look into it and see what we can read on it.
Right, I think it needs to be a group decision, and you'll probably go back and look at the video of that report and prove me wrong, but I thought that mostly talked about the inadequacies or the problems with birth control for deer and other things like that, and the licenses for hunting. I don't know if we necessarily had pretty sure we did not have a robust conversation about deer height, or fence heights, or a thumbs up or down from council on that particular subject. Councilmember Tracy?
I was just going to ask if someone could remind council members which meeting or meetings we talked about this before. It would be helpful for at least me to go back and review our discussion. I don't want us to just have the same discussion over and over, but maybe we can build on that and make a more concrete decision.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Thank you. I do sympathize with our city administrator and staff. I mean, it's very difficult to start talking about variances and things like that. But in this case, I think that probably what we need is some options, perhaps even language, alternate language, where we can actually provide then staff written guidance on what direction council would like to go. So I would suggest that we do that we get back together to talk about this again, except not to go over the same things, but to have example language that might cover the different situations, a 6 foot opaque, 8 foot non-opaque, or whatever, and then get some a definite feedback that way. But I am definitely in favor of continuing the moratorium until we can do that step.
Councilmember Schmischer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't recall if it was our last city council meeting, which was September 6th, or the one before that, August 15th. But just in answer to your question, Councilwoman Tracy, it was during the council member announcements when I believe Andrea and Tim gave a readout of their meeting with the Division of Wildlife. Thank you. So it was towards the very, very beginning of the meeting that the conversation occurred.
But I think our more in-depth conversations were probably earlier in the spring. It was during my coughing season.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and look at the general government meeting. We can, there was one in May, and then there was another one after Mr. Martin came to the last time.
I feel like what we were kind of talking about is if it were an 8-foot fence, that the opacity was going to be key for that option, just for backyards, not front yards. I don't know if this is how council would feel about this too, but maybe the permitting fee for an 8-foot fence might be more as a discouragement for people leaning towards that way. I don't know. I think that's where we just need to have those talks.
Something to be hammered out.
Yeah. In the meantime, I think
Okay.
it's safe to say there's more discussion to be had.
Here's some pictures of my backyard so you can get an idea
Yeah,
of
that would
what
be
I'm
great.
talking about.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Awesome. No, thank you. And perhaps a more thorough report from the Department of Wildlife to participate maybe in that.
Well,
Thank you guys.
And I'll even volunteer to even look into that a little bit more and talk about it. I mean, Zach and Bob did a very good job of discussing, but we were also discussing deer numbers in town and
How much, so it's too bad, I actually have another question for Mr. Martin, and that was how much acreage he has, but you're in that neighborhood, how much?
he is like, I believe his is an acre of property. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he does own an acre.
So that might be a consideration too, of like if you have an acre or more, a certain amount of property, that an 8-foot fence that's opaque might be, because there would have more lands, vegetation, or possible fields. Yeah. So we'll pass this down and around. For now, Councilmember Tracy. I'm on the next agenda item. Oh, go for it.
Thanks. I just wanted to announce that tomorrow evening is the regular monthly meeting of the Cotter Uranium Mill Site Community Advisory Group, 6 p.m. We are on Zoom this month, so email me, emily.tracy@canyoncity.org if you want the Zoom link. We are, several of us who are local members of the Community Advisory Group are exploring options for how we can do hybrid meetings on an ongoing basis. There doesn't seem to be a budget for that, so we're looking into various options about how we might do that, but for now, it's online again.
I would also like to make an announcement that Councilmember Tracy and Schmischer and I met with the county and with Warden, the territorial prison warden, Warden Callie, about the potential beacon program at the Skyline facility, and we're able to get a lot of answers from questions that the community's been getting. And if anyone would like to know more, we're happy to provide that, or suggest reaching out to the county or to the warden. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Hemrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do have a Vision Committee meeting this Wednesday in these chambers at 5 p.m. And we're going to be talking about ordinances for backflow prevention issues and stormwater issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schmischer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also just wanted to highlight the First Friday, Feature Friday that will be coming up the first Friday in October, October 7th, in which we will be rededicating Temple Canyon, but from Macon Plaza. I don't know if you'd like to share anything more about that, but I think it'll be a great event for our community, and I know a lot of folks have been enjoying the Feature Fridays so far this year.
Sure. Yeah, no, thank you for that reminder. So first Friday, October, we'll be starting the day out at Macon Plaza 4:30 with crafts for kids and families to do that are have to do with the ancestral nations and our indigenous culture. And then we are bringing from the Ute Nation, Regina Lopez White Skunk and their company, I'm sorry, I don't have my notes with me, but they're bringing in dancers, a flutist, and a presentation about the Ute Indian Nation in Colorado. And then after that, for those who wish, there will also be a documentary in the library that from One Nation Walking Together that's coming from Colorado Springs, that's just highlighting an indigenous culture and where they are today and what they're doing. Councilmember Tracy?
While we're talking about wonderful events, I did want to say that the concert at the Royal Gorge last Friday was a wonderful event. I don't know what the final ticket sales were, but there was a good crowd there, and someone promoted it as a once-in-a-lifetime kind of an opportunity, and it was. So just wanted to comment that it was wonderful.
I think there are a lot of people, I heard a lot of people saying, let's keep doing this every year.
Yeah.
Councilmember Schmischer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had one more as well. We hosted the Colorado Municipal League Fall District meeting here last Wednesday night, and I just wanted to give a huge shout out to our city clerk, Cindy Foster Owens, as well as Denise Warren for putting on an absolutely fantastic event, and to thank the Spirits for showing up and for doing a wonderful job kind of sharing with us and sharing with the rest of our region a little bit about the history here, and also a shout out to our sponsor, Jewitts, for the happy hour from that.
Thank you for remembering that. Round of applause. Very well. Thank you so much. Any other announcements? Okay, we are going to move on to some other exciting news. Patrick Mulready, city planner extraordinaire, and now with a pretty big feather in your cap.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Yes, we are here to announce some very important news for the city. As you will all recall, last year, about this time last year, we completed work on both our comprehensive plan update and the new UDC. This was a project that I think we came to realize was absolutely necessary towards the end of 2019. And that as we got into this, into 2020, we were hit with a number of challenges. First, of course, was a global pandemic that made public outreach something of a challenge. We also had a grant that helped to fund this project from the Colorado Division of Local Affairs, which came with a definite timeline. We had to have work on this completed by the end of June 2021, which corresponds with the state's fiscal calendar. So we had to have that portion of it wrapped up, the comprehensive plan portion of it wrapped up before the end of June, and the UDC would follow very closely behind it. And the idea was that we were going to be getting both a comprehensive plan and a UDC that reflected one another in terms of the public input that we got and the goals and aspirations that the community told us they were prioritizing and that they wanted to see. Work on this, as I said, completed about this time last year, and then earlier this year, with the help of Halcyon Levine, we submitted both projects to the Colorado chapter of the American Planning Association for recognition. We were, in fact, notified in June, as a matter of fact, that we had received a merit award for this work. I believe this is the first planning award that the city of Canyon City has ever received, and I hope it's not the last. I would love to see more of these. We were asked by the APA to keep this matter confidential until we got close to the APA State Conference happening next week in Vail. And since this is the last council meeting before that event, we thought it would be nice for a proclamation to come forward and recognize that the city has received this recognition. So with that, do you want to talk about the proclamation, or should we go into the promotion?
Well, let's talk about promotion for a little bit.
Okay. We were asked to do 3 things to prepare for this award. One was to draft a newsletter article that would go into the APA's November newsletter. We were asked to put together a social media campaign that would commence after the award was actually received, and then we were asked to put together a short video. So with the help of the mayor, Ryan, Josh Kuntz from Halcyon Levine, and most importantly, our videographer and editor, Brandon Mares, we have put together that video, and we would like to unveil it for the first time here before you all this evening.
Wonderful.
So if I could ask the folks in the booth to run the video.
It'll be shown at the conference, is that right?
It will be shown at the conference,
And
yes.
you'll be attending this conference to accept this award.
I will indeed.
Who else will be attending?
Ryan was going to, but he has had a conflict in his schedule and can no longer make it.
Okay, so you're going to be representing Canyon City for this prestigious national award.
I will.
It's very well deserved. Can you turn the volume up just a little bit?
By the end of 2019, Canyon City was forced to admit its zoning, subdivision, and development regulations were not working.
City Council and the Planning Commission both met frequently with Halcyon Levine in reviewing the recommendations for the Picture Canyon City 2040.
The last major update these regulations had dated back to the 1970s, with piecemeal additions being made over the next 4 decades.
Yeah, we were looking at a comprehensive plan that hadn't been updated since the late 90s, early 2000s. And the major goal was to get something modern.
We kicked off the project in July 2020 with a wide-ranging public outreach campaign that included online surveys, key person interviews, online mapping tools, and a community-wide visioning workshop.
It was important for the city to take a look at the projects that we had forward and where we wanted to take the community.
The city's land use code was commonly referred to as having been Frankensteined into existence.
We had been through a very tough development process with a developer, and it became very apparent to the city that our land use code was very old and kind of Frankenstein together over the years.
So during that process, we also were able to recognize some issues with our Unified Development Code and an opportunity to take codes and just our municipal code in general that was really Frankensteined and just put together in lots of different segments.
A change needed to be made, so council allocated a budget of $150,000 to address these needs. At the same time, Canyon City was awarded a grant from the Colorado Department of Local Affairs
commonly referred to as DOLA, that doubled the council budget allocation, but the terms of the DOLA grant required that work be completed by the end of the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
Canyon City had a grant from the state of Colorado that had a strict deadline. And so that was the impetus for really working through this process with Hassel Levine.
It was important for us to take a look at that and bring in a consultant to help us develop something that's more modern, that's going to meet the needs of the community.
This was in early days of the pandemic, and we were able to work with the city and pivot the community outreach and conduct safe workshops with real-time feedback from those attending both in person and virtually.
And this wasn't just the standard cookie cutter consultant. They really took the time to get to know us, what we truly needed and wanted in our community, and they were listening.
We were very lucky to select Hassel Levine, bringing their expertise to Canyon City and their award-winning knowledge.
This is what we do. We take in a lot of information about the city, and then we work with the community and with city staff to zero in on the things that are most important.
You know, we're looking forward to the next 20 years.
It was really exciting. It was actually really pleasant to work with this company.
We use this project specifically when we talk about projects that went well. We talk about this project. The collaboration with the project team, and by project team I mean Hassel Levine, JR, and Tetra Tech, our subs that did a great job on this project, and then city staff. The collaboration was wonderful. Open mind, clear feedback. It really was just a really positive project and a positive experience, and we did it all during the pandemic.
So it was a really exciting time for us as we were going from a period of over 20 years of not having a comprehensive plan to finally being able to really nail down where we needed to go into the future and have tons of public interaction and engagement in that process.
And there you go.
Well done. Well done to Brandon. And thank you for that dedication to Councilmember Meisner. It was wonderful.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that, wanted to represent everybody who took part in it, and, Councilmember Meisner was a big piece of that, so certainly appreciate that. Also wanted to recognize Brandon tonight, who is mysteriously absent.
He is so humble.
He did a great job putting that package together, doing all the videography and then all the editing, as Patrick mentioned. So, big round of applause to Patrick, or to Brandon as well, and of course Patrick for submitting our application.
Absolutely. We are super excited and proud to be featured for this prestigious thing, and just
And like I said, I hope it's the first of many.
I like the sounds of that. Do you have some comments, starting with Councilmember Tracy?
Oh, I think my question was answered, and that was I wanted to know if you were going to be able to go to the conference in person to accept.
Yes, I will
And
be.
you are. And we'll all be there in spirit, if not in person, right? Right.
Well, Carrie has asked me to get her a picture of the Merit Award when I receive it. She would like to do some press about that.
I was looking at their agenda. I've been to a couple of their conferences in the past, and is it the awards breakfast? Is that when they're going to do this?
It will be at the awards breakfast. I think that's Thursday morning next week.
Right. Well, great. Well, congratulations to you and everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. We want lots of pictures.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Schmischer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank you, Patrick, for all of the hard work that you do each and every day. But this was one of the very first things that I had to wade through and figure out when I first joined council last year, and you were infinitely patient, and it was a wonderful primer to all things that the city works on and that the city does. But I just thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for leading the city's effort towards achieving this award. So
I appreciate that, but I think this is an award for all of Canyon City to be proud of, not just me.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say from my perspective, and thank you to city staff, our planner and our administrator. But one of the things I think that was important when city council was looking at this issue was to get it done right. And I think that the perfect choice was made for a partner to help us do that. Just a technical note, with my 75-year-old ears, on the percussion track of the video, it made it really difficult for me to understand what was being said. So if there's some way to turn that down, that would be really good. But it's good the way it is, but it could be a little bit better if it was turned down.
I will admit it sounded a little better on the speakers coming off of my computer than the overhead ones we've got here. I think these speakers are probably not the best that we could be using for something like this.
Not the highest fidelity.
Correct.
Let's go ahead and read the proclamation. We'd like to have the entire city council participate in the reading of it, and we'll start on your end. Councilmember Tracy.
Office of the Mayor, proclamation, Canyon City's 2023. Think by now I'd remember the button on the microphone. Office of the Mayor, proclamation, Canyon City's 2022 Colorado chapter of the American Planning Association Merit Award for the Picture Canyon City 2040, A Pathway to the Future Comprehensive Plan and Unified Development Code Update Project.
Whereas, in the fall of 2019, the City Council for the City of Canyon City, recognizing the deficiencies that existed in the city zoning, subdivision, and development regulations, authorized the expenditure of $150,000 to update these regulations in an effort to make Canyon City's land development processes more user-friendly and workable. And
whereas also in the fall of 2019, Canyon City was awarded a grant by the Colorado Department of Local Affairs in the amount of $150,000 to update the city's comprehensive plan for the first time since 2001, with the caveat that the work had to be completed by June 30th, 2021. And
whereas in January of 2020, Canyon City published a request for proposals to help the city update its comprehensive plan and its zoning, subdivision, and development regulations. And
whereas at the height of a global pandemic, Canyon City received 8 proposals from well-qualified planning and urban design firms to work with the city on this project, out of which the city selected the firm Housiel Levine. And
whereas, even with the challenges of a pandemic, the project known as Picture Canyon City 2040, A Pathway to the Future, commenced in the summer of 2020 with existing conditions analyses, extensive public outreach and input, surveys, and a Map Social website feature that allowed residents to tell their stories of important places in Canyon City, all of which began to inform the shape of both the comprehensive plan and the new Unified Development Code. And
whereas, beginning in the fall of 2020, a joint oversight committee comprised of representatives of the city's Planning Commission and City Council began to evaluate draft materials for the new comprehensive plan and UDC and found the process truly informative and rewarding. And
whereas, consistent with the requirements of the grant from Colorado Department of Local Affairs, the new comprehensive plan was formally adopted on June 21st, 2021, and the new UDC was formally adopted on August 16, 2021, with an effective date of September 1, 2021, thus completing the project in only a year from commencement of the work. And
whereas, given the positive public reaction to both the new comprehensive plan and the new UDC, city staff and Housiel Levine submitted the project to the Colorado chapter of the American Planning Association for recognition.
now therefore, in recognition of these efforts and challenges, the short timeline for completion, the positive public reaction to the new comprehensive plan and UDC, and the exceptional quality of the work done, Ashley Smith, Mayor of Canyon City, has the distinct honor to proclaim the City of Canyon City as the recipient of the 2022 Colorado Chapter of the American Planning Association Merit Award for the Picture Canyon City 2040, A Pathway to the Future, Comprehensive Plan and Unified Development Code Update Project, dated this 19th day of September, 2022.
Thank you, council. And I would just like to just make, for the benefit of the public, just a remembrance that this comprehensive plan is truly comprehensive. Like it is our one document that guides every decision or every goal that we want to make or move forward with. And so every effort or every dollar spent, we refer to that comprehensive plan to make sure it is going in the right way, that the city of Canyon City and the people that have participated in its update have had a say in how that is done. And I have had conversations with state officials who could potentially give us money for grants, have said that having this updated comprehensive plan has been key in them even having conversations with us for consideration, that this is needed to have that future funding for future grants. So I'm super excited. Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
And just to add on to that, one of the things that that we wanted and that came with this plan was an action matrix that outlined the various steps that the plan called for that were to be accomplished in the future. Oftentimes plans of this sort make nice shelf ornaments, sit there and are not referred to. But this plan, we have an action matrix. We actively review that, especially during our retreats, and see where we are in accomplishing the goals that we have set out for ourselves. And so we've got a plan and a way to carry it out and a way to check ourselves to see how we're progressing.
Thank you. I think it's time for a round of applause, a standing ovation, and pictures. Let's come on down. Ryan, come and join us. Awesome. Well, have fun.
Well, I will, and I'll be bringing back the award. Do you get the state? I do.
Is this a trophy? Will this be a trophy back?
I don't know if it's a trophy or a certificate. So as soon as I find out, I would love that.
If it's a trophy, strap the top of your car and drive around.
Ryan, I do have a question for that press release on their award. Is that going out after it's officially received, or is that going out sooner?
It will be going out after the award is officially given to us.
Okay. Well, let's make sure we send that out for our ride. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is time to go over our consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Item 8A is to approve the minutes from September 6th regular city council meeting, the September 7th general government meeting, and the August 29th special meeting, which was the retreat. 8B authorizes the mayor and city council to sign a letter of support for the VA clinic in Fremont County. 8C awards bid 4822 HD Quick View camera system to Neverest Equipment Company in an amount not to exceed $17,051.27. 8D awards bid 4922 Police Annex Phase 2 construction to Leck Construction in an amount not to exceed $297,720.83. 8E authorizes surplus vehicle list and disposal according to city purchasing policy. 8F is to receive and file a monthly budget summary, and 8G is to receive and file a list of bills.
Emily, Tracy. Councilmember Tracy.
Thanks. I have questions about, let's see, 8C, D, and F. So either, you want me to
Go
dig
for
into
it.
all of them, or, okay. I'll start with F, because I think that's simpler, and City Administrator Stevens replied to my email about this, but it may be just me, but I wanted to be sure I fully understand. Under 8F, the general fund revenues and expenditures chart, it does say at the top of that, each time we look at how much of the year has gone by of the full fiscal year. We're now as of these numbers, 58.33% of the year complete. I just wanted to be sure that I'm understanding that in the column titled over/under budget, that's comparing year-to-date to the full year's budget, or is it comparing something a little different?
Yeah, that should be comparing year-to-date to the overall budget.
Okay. So that's, we can just judge from there, do we have enough year yet, left yet to get the revenue that we expected to get, that kind of thing?
Correct, and just as a reminder, because we're state collected, that those revenue numbers come in delayed, so they,
The sales tax.
The sales tax, correct.
Okay, thanks. And then my other questions on 8C, I just wanted to learn a little bit more about what the camera system is that's being purchased on item 8C.
Sure. I've got Jim Johnson from our Fleets Department here to talk about the camera system. This is an upgraded camera for the VAC truck.
Okay, so the camera we bought initially with the truck, it has a purpose of going down the line on the end of the hose reel. But when we hit a blockage, it'll kick the water back, kind of takes the video part out of it. And then it's HD, so when it, say, goes down the line 300 or 400 feet, it might take 30 to 40 minutes of video going down, but we lose, because it's Bluetooth, once it goes into the pipe, we lose connectivity. It's still videoing, and we download it when it comes out, and it works real good, to document that we've got the line clean, but it doesn't help us a lot locating a block. And so when we run this thing down the line, that camera is at the front on the hose. So when we're pounding it up against a blockage, then we're kind of doing some damage to the camera, to the skid that it's on, and we've found that it's caused us some problems. With this HD, when we come back to download it, we can't do it on our laptop out there because it's so much information. We bring it back, and it may take 45 minutes to download one file of running down a 300-foot line. Where this one is a completely different purpose. It's mounted on a pole. You can stick it down the hole so you don't have to go into a confined space. You can zoom it down the line, and you can see if there's a blockage, and we can determine where the blockage is at, what we're looking at, and how we need to attack it. Whether we need to dig up the line at that point, or we need to put a different nozzle on that will break through it and be able to come down. And it just saves a lot of time. With this one, it doesn't go down the line, it's still Bluetooth, but we can look at the monitor real time, see what we're looking at. We can zoom in at different points. If we're trying to look at the side of the wall of the pipe, we can do one side, the other side, bottom, top, and we can determine, if the line's collapsed, where it's at, what kind of thing we have. A lot of times we'll get into a collapsed line where the bottom of the line has broken out. Well, when it's going down with the skid, the camera will take a nosedive there, then it just jams in. We can't go any farther. But with this, we can zoom into where it's at up to 500 feet. So we can actually go from one manhole to the next, So we can actually run, we went all the way from Rhodes Avenue to Reynolds, looking through this on the demo. Had a real clear picture, and you can see what you've got ahead of time. The one we have works really good after the line's been cleaned. We can run it down, we can take good video of how it stands at this point, and then say a year later when we're going to look at our lines to see what kind of debris we've collected over 1 year while we're doing our maintenance, we have that to look back and say, well, this line was completely clean 12 months ago. Now we've got 6 or 8 inches of debris in it, or more, or less. It gives us a good idea of where we're at. But for initial attack on one of these lines, to see what we're up against, it really doesn't help us as much as we had hoped for. But it was kind of the low end of the camera. It's our first one. We wanted to see what it would do. This one just kind of enhances our capabilities, saves us some time, and just a little better capabilities.
So did I understand correctly that the old one operates from the vac truck, but this one is just a separate?
Yes,
setup?
the first one we got, you actually attach it to the hose reel, and as it pushes water going down. So that's why sometimes the vision is distorted if we get up against a plug. Well, the water is pushing that down the line, so that'll just push all the water back on the camera, so you get no vision once you get to a blockage. This one will be able to determine where the blockage is first, and then we'll be able to run video of that the line is clean for our documentation for stormwater of what kind of condition our lines are in at any particular time. But this is more of a diagnostic camera before we actually start cleaning, so we know what we're up against.
A follow-up question on that, if I could. So when you talk about being able to zoom it down the line, that's an optical zoom. The camera's stationary, but you're focusing down the line.
Yes, it
And
stays
you can see
right.
quite a ways.
It is. It's really impressive. When we videoed it, we were kind of skeptical, but when we ran it down looked at the lines over there on Rhodes Avenue, it was pretty clear, and it's well worth it. And especially some of our manholes, especially over there on 15th Street there by Canyon Tire, we've got some manholes that are 15, 20 foot deep to where they go down to the collection. Without this, we've got to go down in and do all the confined space safety stuff that we need to do. This kind of protects our staff that we don't have to go down those on the ladders and set up our hose without knowing what we're actually going in to do. So it does help safety-wise as well.
And Jim, I was really glad to hear that it was tested and tried by the staff. So that brings me some comfort. I was curious to know, how is the VAC truck program and system coming along? What kind of diagnosis do you have for our system? Is it working, and how many pipes do we have that are collapsed?
It's working really well. We've the amount of debris that we pulled out of the system over the first year and a half is unbelievable. Most of our lines were either completely plugged or were 80 to 90% plugged. We've pretty much got probably 95% of them have been cleaned one time. We're now on our maintenance part of it where we're going back, cleaning them on a schedule. A lot of it, where we have the irrigation water, we can only do it after the irrigation water is shut down. So in the wintertime, that's when a lot of that gets done. And that does cause a lot of debris to settle in the lines. So we do get a lot of debris over 1 year period. It's pretty remarkable how much we pull out of there. But we have collected, well, Tony's got the numbers on Cartograph, but we haul several dump truck loads out a week on some of those lines.
Wow.
And really without this, we had no capability to clean any of these lines. And you all know the problems we had along Royal Gorge Boulevard, the flood. If you've seen some of our last rains, if we get a little bit of water buildup, it doesn't last long. It's only if it's been enough to overwhelm a 12 or 14 inch pipe. Most of the backups we get now is from trash washing down onto the grate. And then, we have to go out and pull that off, but then it drains right away. It's night and day, the difference of what it was before we had this. It's no wonder we were flooding all the time, because they just couldn't drain. They were completely plugged, and we had no way to clean them.
Amazing. And what about the collapsed pipes?
We've had to dig a few of them up and replace, sections of it that we can tell that are collapsed. Sometimes we're able to pull out some of the debris that's collapsed. If it's a concrete pipe, some of it's just fallen in. We will tag that to come back later, but at least we can clean it enough to where it's gonna drain. But we've come up across some of that. We've had a lot of cross boring where they've, when they're putting in the gas lines or putting in fiber optics, that underground boring machine that we see all around town, they go right through our pipe, if we have those clay pipes. So we'll run this camera down there. Depending on what level it is in the pipe, we can't get through because that'll catch a lot of debris, just that line going through. And we have no way of knowing that until we go to clean it. And when you had debris backed up on both sides of that crossbore, there's no way we could tell. We had no way to know. Now with the camera and the vac truck, we can clean it from each side, see where our block is, and we can locate the culprit that crossbored us, and we can at least take care of it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Schmischer, did you have some questions too?
Not on
Not on this?
8C, on a different.
Okay. Well, Jim, you might want to stay up because we also have some stuff about the police annex and surplus vehicles you might want to have answers on.
Okay.
Tracy, you had a couple more questions?
Just in regard to 8D, just recognizing that there may be some discussion that staff can't really get into at this point, but having to move from the first bidder on that project at the police annex to the next bidder, which is roughly about 75,000 higher. I just wondered if you can say, either City Administrator Stevens or Jim, if you can say how that will be approached so that we're making sure we're not spending any more than we have to on that project.
Yeah, we went with the initial bid and thought it was, we were going to be okay. We had carried over the amount that we did over for the year, and he was within that budget. They showed up within the 10 days that they had to by contract to mobilize. They worked for 9 days on the project, and they left on June 22nd and reappeared on August 23rd with no work being done in between. Very hard to contact, very hard to get anything done. And with CAC and their grant that they have for a lot of their stuff, it has to be done. And I tried to get them to give me a written proposal of how they were going to get this completed on time. I never did get that. And until after we terminated their contract, I got a call saying, we're still working on that, which had been 2 weeks prior, just to give me a plan of how they could complete it. But I mean, that was already when the contract had expired. And so we're really just in a spot where we just had to cut them loose because they just can't do the job. And Bob Leck did the first phase of that project, and he was the second bidder. And he's done a real quality job on the first phase. He always does. He's a local contractor. He was higher. I think there's room for negotiation on a few of the things that he had in his initial contract that he went above and beyond the specs that we actually put in, and he acknowledged that. And that's why he was that much higher than the other one. But Jenkins, as soon as they came in, started hitting us with change orders that were pretty bogus, that put them up a lot closer to where Leck Construction was. And so I think in order to get this thing completed and to keep CAC from losing their grant money, we pretty much need to go with this one and get it done. And then Bob Leck assures me he can get it done within the time frame that we won't lose the grant money on the CAC. So I would just recommend that we go ahead and approve this. I think that he did add some things in that was above and beyond, but Bob Leck he does that. He knows that some of these things needed done, and so he added them in instead of trying to get change orders out of us. But my plan was, because we had the limited amount carried over from last year, I kind of scaled back what our expectations were, and we were going to do more of it in 2023, and I budgeted money in the 2023 budget to accomplish the stuff that I didn't have enough money in this year's budget for. So we kind of trimmed back the expectations on the bid. Well, Bob added some of that stuff that he knew needed done, and so that's why his was higher. But I do know from the first phase with Bob Leck, I don't get a lot of change orders. He's upfront about everything, and he's a very trustworthy local contractor. And I apologize for going with the Jenkins. It was a learning lesson for me. I dread it every day since it happened, but we got to try to move on.
So,
Thank you.
you know, this is written as a not to exceed. I think, as Jim mentioned, there's some, probably some line items in there that we can negotiate down and to try and keep this, continue to keep this more in line with that budget.
Thanks. That's all.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any other questions for Jim? Go ahead, Councilmember Schmischer.
Thank you so much. I just had 2 additional questions on 8D. That's great to hear that the timeline won't affect the CAC's grant. I'm just wondering if there is a new estimated date of completion.
Yes, I'm wanting to put in the contract that the completion date would be January 31st, but the CAC portion of that will be completed, I would say, by mid-November, and that gives them time to get their stuff installed and will complete the grant. The reason he could have it done this year, I believe, I continued it over into 2023 just because of the funds that I budgeted for next year to get, some of this done that we needed done anyway, and I was budgeting for, but now it'll just be part of this contract. So I did put the completion date as January 31st. However, the portion that CAC will be moving into will be completed well before that.
Understood, thanks. And that actually answered my second question. So part of the funding will be for this contract. You'll incrementally fund it, and part of it will be coming from the 2023 budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? Let's entertain a motion. Councilmember Schmischer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Schmischer?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
All right, it passes. Jim, thank you for being here tonight to answer our questions. Really appreciate it. Ryan, let's get administrator's report, please.
You have the written administrator's report in front of you. Do want to call attention, there were a lot of great things happening last week. We also hosted the Southern Colorado Startup Week, and Rick Harmon put a lot of time into that. Brandy Sheets, our grant writer, worked on that quite a bit as well. Very successful event. I don't know about the sessions in the other communities, but I do know our sessions did rate very highly amongst participants. So, a lot of great discussion, around affordable housing, as well as the different programs that we've been running for several years within the community, P-TECH and TechStart and everything else that's going on there. The HR director position has closed, working on setting up some interviews with some candidates, probably within, hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have those interviews scheduled and conducted. We are still waiting on that filing deadline for our public works director. Applications have been fairly light, so we're still holding out hope over the next week that we'll see some good applications come in for that one. You have the rest of the report in here. I do want to bring some attention to last week after this report was written. We finally got notification and clearance from CDOT regarding the Highway 50 pedestrian crossing project. We are working on those bid documents to get those out. do have concerns about whether or not we can hit that, the deadline of having that project done before tourist season. Actually, the target is Blossom Festival for next year, so we're working on that, trying to get that out and seeing what those deadlines come back as, or what the contractors are saying. We're looking at bidding it a couple of different ways, where maybe a portion of it is completed before Blossom Festival and a portion of it gets completed after Labor Day of next year. So we'll see what those alternatives look like. We were expecting this clearance back in August, so that's put us behind the 8 ball.
Ryan, if I remember correctly, at that fantastic tech sector convention or in the workshops that Canyon City helped host, I think there was another press release announced concerning the broadband.
We are working, and we actually had a meeting today negotiating with a broadband vendor. No press releases have gone out yet.
Okay, well, there's an announcement made.
Yep. There was some discussion at that meeting about the broadband project, and we're working on negotiating that contract to bring before council, and very excited about that project here, hopefully in the near future.
So we're in negotiations officially.
Yes.
Excellent. I do have a question for you and Corey. I see here that the letter to Acorn Petroleum Property was prepared and sent. I remember hearing that there was going to be a deadline for that offer. I was wondering what that deadline is.
We heard back from Acorn last week, and with everything going on last week, we have not had an opportunity to sit down and talk about that. Essentially, they're asking for more time, so we will need to discuss what that means and how much time we would be willing to give them.
Well, at least they responded so quickly. I mean, that's promising. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Schmischer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Administrator Stevens, I was wondering if you could share a bit more about the Maverick gas station site plan at Latigo Lane and US Highway 50.
Yeah, we have another application for a new gas station, this one being a Maverick gas station going in across from Chili's. And site plan has gone out on referral, so waiting for comments back from all our public entities and partners.
So it's going to be 3 new gas stations?
You have the Loves, you have the City Markets, and the Maverick.
It's a lot of new gas stations. I think it's important to say, based on the reaction of getting another tire store in Canyon City, that when there's private property, as long, the city doesn't pick and choose what people get to build and where they get to build it. As long as that private property owner chooses something that fits the zoning code and all the building codes, that's their prerogative, unless we want to put a moratorium on anybody building a certain industry.
Yeah, this is the free market at work. So, people, are going to go out and they're going to do their due diligence. And if they think there's a market opportunity, and as you said, Madam Mayor, if it, as long as it fits within the zoning code, we're going to review it. That's why we do these site plans. So, that goes out to the referral agencies. So if there's engineering work or traffic work that needs to be done for, that type of business to come in, that's when we make those comments during that site plan process.
Councilmember Tracy?
Just a quick comment. All 3 of those new ones are on the north side of the highway. It sounds like we need a little balance on the south. Not that we need a 4th one, but, when people are driving in one direction, they don't necessarily like to cross over and go get gas.
And just, one trend you might notice as well is they're all at lighted intersections.
Okay, any other questions for Ryan? Then let's move on to item 10, and this is discussion on, first, a draft ordinance for backflow fines, and then a draft ordinance for stormwater violations. Now, I was curious about this, because these are both on our agenda for general government. Is this part our
This is the new process, so
we
this
get to
is
decide if we're going to talk about it or not.
So this is the introduction to council so that it can be referred to the meeting on Wednesday. So
So if we say no, we don't want to talk about this, we get the day off.
So that's one way of looking at it, yes. So tonight, we're not looking for a motion to approve the ordinance. We're looking for a motion to refer it to the vision meeting on Wednesday. Attorney Hoffman, any additional comments?
Nothing to add.
And just as a note, our committee meetings on Wednesdays are meetings of the whole, not a meeting of three, similar to what the charter might say, but the council meets as a whole in committee.
So we're going above and beyond the charter's
Exactly.
requirements.
Correct.
Well, Travis, you've been here throughout this meeting. Do you have anything you want to say pertaining to the consideration of talking about this on Wednesday?
Just kind of a brief overview of the proposed ordinances. We're trying to get an enforcement action that's a little less heavy-handed than turning someone's water off. That's why we're proposing these fines to give us kind of an intermediary action rather than shutting water off. We're very aware that shutting a business's water off can a lot of times make them go out of business, right? A lot of restaurants can't open if they don't have water, things of that nature, and that's certainly not our intent to try to put someone out of business. So it's trying to be less heavy-handed in essence. It's not putting any additional testing requirements on anybody. It's just an additional enforcement action.
Thank you. Councilmember Tracy.
I guess I have a question and maybe, well, a question or two, I'm not sure. We don't have ordinance numbers yet, do we, for these?
Not yet.
Okay, and then can a motion include both, or should it be two separate motions for referral?
You can do one motion. The issue here is making sure that the minutes reflect that the ordinances were actually referred to the committee, and so it can be done either way.
I'd be happy to.
Oh, wait, do you
make
have
that
another
motion.
council member that'd like to say something or have a question?
Just briefly, I did want to share a little bit about why we're doing it this way, because we want to make sure that we're being as transparent as we possibly can, that we're following the city's charter. And part of what we've seen, I think, as a council is that people don't hear about things until after the first reading. So by doing an introduction during a regular city council meeting and kind of clearly stating what it's about, and that we will be having the discussion at the Wednesday general government meeting, it then gives Canyon City residents an opportunity to both participate in that discussion on the Wednesday, as well as more opportunities to hear about it before it comes to council for formal approval at first reading. So we're just hopeful that by unfortunately lengthening the process a little bit and having our city staff have to participate in more after-hours meetings, it will also give residents more of an opportunity to have a voice in the process, which I know is really important to all of us.
Well, and we're staying true to the Constitution, basically, of Canyon City. I know this is brand new, and I mean, this is the first time this has happened for us, and we're gonna work out some kinks to get through it, but maybe at some point as this evolves, maybe be able to push out the introduction and the following council meeting, or, our vision committee meeting or general government, so we have a little bit of cushion in case we say no. There's still some time to fill that.
Yeah, that would be the goal.
Yeah.
Some of these things have been on committee meetings prior to the decision to go
Right.
to this process, so.
Right, yeah, no, I recognize that. So, thank you, really appreciate the accommodation. Maybe if council has any questions or things they want to be seen or addressed on Wednesday, now would probably be a good time to let you know, so you can be prepared for those questions as well.
Yes, please.
Councilmember Schmischer?
Sure. I do have several. I'm also happy to send it over in an email tomorrow. But I would really appreciate, I understand that both 10A and 10B are amendments to existing ordinances. So I'd really appreciate having the red line so that we understand kind of the amendment in situ, what's surrounding it, what's currently there and what's being changed. With regard to the draft ordinance for backflow fines, some of the questions that I had are what causes one to be in violation with CDPHE, 90 days from when, and then kind of what do the penalties that CDPHE could sorry, I'm trying to find it, could take enforcement action against the city, like what sort of enforcement actions could they actually take, what that would look like. And then within section 1C, it was hard for me to understand how that equated back to people having 90 days notice, because it seemed like the time period for curing violations was only 10 days. But I think that I just need to understand the process better. And I can do 10B really quick as well, or I can stop at 10A. So on 10B, I had questions about, so it's $250 per violation per day, but it says that it depends on the severity of the violation. So just understanding what some of the violations might look like and kind of what the sliding scale within that might be, just so that folks could potentially understand that. And then also how we would make the determination of whether you're waiting for the 10-day cure period or not, or my questions around stormwater. Thanks.
Regarding the red lines, we'll definitely get you a red line for the stormwater ordinance. The ordinance for the backflow, those are all brand-new sections that are being added in.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
We can send you the link to the existing language surrounding that if you'd like to review what's currently on the book. So
That'd be great. Thank you.
I think the only other thing I have in addition is wherever this communication is to the public that, you know, you're proposing, that there's a heavy emphasis that this is coming from state requirements and this is not a city thing. I've had a business send me a picture of the notice of violation with the text saying, here's another example of why Canyon City's not business friendly, and have to reply like, this is not a Canyon City initiative. This is coming from the state that we're required to enforce, or else there's consequences. And so I just really want to make sure those communications are very clear that this is a state thing that we are required to go through. Councilmember Schmischer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That just reminded me what you mentioned of one other thing. If we know the specific groups that these ordinances will be impacting the most, if it's possible to reach out to them and invite them to participate in Wednesday's meeting. You know, I understand I understand businesses primarily with the backflow testing, so perhaps letting the chamber know, or letting other interested parties know so that they can be part of those conversations, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, we had a conversation about that today, and the chamber's gonna put an email blast out, so.
Oh, wonderful. And this has been, I mean, we've been doing this program for how long now?
Oh, gosh, 3 or 4 years, something
3 or
like
4
that?
years, and so yeah, I know that Florence, I mean, they do the same thing. We have to do backflow tests on our commercial properties too, so
Yep.
it's pretty standard.
Yeah, and that's a good
It's been a while.
clarification to make. This is all commercial businesses. This is not residential. This doesn't affect any residential homes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
I think for our purposes here tonight, I think the important thing to point out to our vast internet audience or TV audience that is watching here tonight is that we are actually talking about putting bigger teeth in our ordinances for violations. So this is going to have real-world consequences for people that run afoul of these regulations. And so this is, I think that's an important thing to state. All we're doing tonight is just moving this forward to a discussion stage following our charter. And with that, if there's no other discussion, I move that we discuss both of these ordinances in our Vision Committee meeting Wednesday.
Thank you. There's been a motion.
I have a comment.
Some discussion.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Just a clarification of Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick's comment there is that, especially when it comes to the backflow ordinance, there's some pretty big teeth in it already, which is shut off. What we're looking for is a gradual approach before we get there.
Some baby
Thank you
teeth.
for that further explanation.
Well, so yeah, that's an important part of the conversation, but also maybe some further enlightenment on what the teeth the state will enforce on us if we don't have the required compliance.
I'll be ready,
to-
I promise.
Yeah. So there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Schmisher?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracy?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
The motion passes. We will take these two ordinances into consideration on Wednesday. Thank you for being here. Thank you, staff and council. Really appreciate you and the preparation you put into our meetings. This meeting is adjourned.